The 44th Annual Earth First National Gathering saw hundreds of people come together to share movement knowledge and build community. Among them were people who had been coming to Earth First events for decades, and others who were discovering the movement for the first time this year. Participants across that spectrum shared with Unicorn Riot their experiences of the event and why they decided to show up at the 2024 gathering. I was told that this is your first gathering. Can you start by introducing yourself?
I'm Cherry.
Where did you come in from?
Vermont.
I'm curious how you learned about the gathering and what drove you to come check it out.
I've been politically active for a few years now, but not in an organizational manner. That has been more of the past few months. And through that, I've met some very cool people who knew about this and were like, you would be interested, and now I'm here.
How did you go from other political organizing to coming to this gathering?
Off the bat, everything, all of the struggles are 100% interconnected. So it absolutely has to do with Earth First and land back movements. But specifically, I got into organizing more with the Justice for Palestine movement. And I didn't feel like I could sit behind my screen and watch anymore. And it feels good to do something about it. The people that I've met in that movement are also very aware of the interconnected nature of the struggles. And yeah, we've just been working to expand our community and to expand our knowledge and our trainings and, pass that also to people who are just now entering the movement.
What has your experience at the gathering been finding community and building relationships?
Well, it's really easy. Everyone is so friendly. Also, I came with a pretty large group of people, a few of whom already had been to a few of these, had their own connections. And so I got to make what feels like lifelong friendships pretty quickly. And then also just meeting new people through trainings and through chatting and, serving meals together. It's just like a really beautiful experience.
What have you been getting into this week?
Well, besides the trainings, I've been serving food, washing dishes, a lot of pond time. Been a bit of a hot week. Yeah, just helping out, meeting folks, having important conversations, having unimportant conversations,
Had you heard about Earth First as a movement before or gatherings as an event before coming to this?
The first time I heard of Earth First, I think, was through negative media attention. They're eco-terrorists, Then I started having a lot of respect for that. Yeah, I didn't really know about regional gatherings or anything, but a friend of mine, an organizer friend of mine did, and they introduced me.
What were your feelings leading into this gathering? Did you have any apprehension about showing up here, or what pushed you from having heard about this to coming out and participating this week?
As soon as I heard about it, I was down. That was pretty immediate. I was and am still a bit apprehensive about getting my name on any lists that may be associated with Earth First, but I figured my name may be on some lists already. And they're not really bad lists to be on in my book.
What would you say to other people who are maybe considering coming to an Earth First gathering?
It's a good time. It's real casual. There's a ton of education here. The community is really wonderful. The people are really wonderful. You learn so much, and not just from an educational standpoint, but making connections and learning about other people's cultures. It's a beautiful experience, and I doubt you'd regret it.
I'm here speaking with a participant who's been on the ground at several Earth First gatherings throughout the years.
Hi, I go by many names. Right now, I'm trying out Bojingle. I've been here for more than a couple years, and I do consider this my community. We all come together each year for what we call the Earth First Gathering. People from a variety of land defense spaces come together, and land defense is such a broad umbrella phrase that kind of covers a lot of forms of resistance to extractive infrastructure, things like oil pipelines, things like fracking, things like natural gas, but also land defense can include things like, chemical companies that are spraying toxic things into our water. Anybody who cares about the land that they live on, anybody who cares about the water they drink or the future of that land and water and is actively doing something about it could very well call themselves a land defender.
When did you start showing up to Earth First events?
I've only been going to gatherings for like a few years, but I've been involved in things adjacent to Earth First gatherings for much longer than that, since I was like 18 or 19 years old, and I'm 25 now.
How did you learn about Earth First as a movement space?
Well, I was being a rowdy kid fighting pipelines, hating these energy companies, and this is a place that a lot of my friends called home. So I was just kind of, dragged along for the ride.
Why have you continued to come back over the years?
I think that when you care so much about something, especially something as special and fundamentally important as the land that you live on and the water that you drink, and you're actively doing something about it, the friendships that you make along the way are really special because you're all doing something that is so deeply important to you and you're all putting so much of yourselves into it. And so the friendships that we make along the way are just really, I would not be the same person without them. And, this is kind of the only time of year that I get to see some of those friends anymore. So it's always a priority for me to make it to these things just so that way I can just connect with those friends that I've, done so much with and sacrificed so much with.
What would you want somebody who's never been to an Earth First gathering to know about this space or the movement more broadly?
I would say be grounded in why you are here, because this is a space where people who have done serious things and made serious commitments come together to connect with their friends and talk about the serious things and build our capacity to do more serious things, because when we can play together and when we can just have this chill time to just skill share and hang out, then we can do more things. We're not here hanging out having fun just to do that. We are building our capacity so that way we can continue as a movement.
What would you say to somebody who's considering coming to an Earth First gathering, but this is their first exposure to something like this?
I kind of would encourage people to get involved in land defense movements where they live or like through their friends before coming to something like this, to be completely honest. I have felt very welcomed in this space as a transgender person, as an Asian person, as, just like a weirdo. So if you're like a if you're like a toxic bro, this is maybe not the place for you. But it's a really wholesome community for people who are looking for that and who are down to throw down.
Hey, I'm Sarah from the Great Lakes.
How long have you been coming to Earth First events and Earth First gatherings specifically?
The first one I went to was in 2010 in Montana. Earth First is where I found my political home. It's like the best, most competent people who are just like down to get it, like just so hardworking and hilarious, and this like kind of heart of a prankster sort of vibe, and like, I don't know, such high tolerance for like conflict and grief and anger and like holding these nuances and like not claiming these like false victories that I find is so common in like big green organizing. I don't know, I think it's so easy to either fall into like the apathy of hopelessness and then not do anything, or need this positivity to keep you going. So you get these like false victories people claim, but I think Earth First is one of the few places where we like honor that grief, anger, and fear and keep fighting and like celebrate the wins when we have them.
What do you think sets Earth First as a movement apart in that way?
I think like the tenets of Earth First are so solid. So biocentrism, the idea that like all living things are on equal footing, and that's like within the human world, non-hierarchy with that, but also like humans, lichen, ants, gorillas, giraffes, like we're all equally valuable and like all should be able to thrive. So biocentrism, direct action, like if you want it, do it, don't wait for saviors, and work with your community to get that. Decolonization, and then there's an ethic of wilderness. And I think just because we have those really strong tenets, it is really different.
Have you experienced that kind of unique blend of grit and substance in other organizing spaces?
Yeah, but I think like in my super normal Sierra Club organizing, people know that like Earth First is like where my heart is. I like wear my Earth First hat in a lot of places. So I moved through the world as a teacher like that, as a facilitator like that. And I think a ton of Earth Firsters do that too. So they just like bring this style that they've found here, cultivated here, or resonates with them into like their other stuff.
Do you think that Earth First is a space just for people who are interested in land defense, or do you think that it has something to offer beyond just typical environmental defense?
Yes and no. I think like if you're not into the land and you're not here for like no compromise in defense of Mother Earth, like Earth First is not a place for you. And our movement is big enough that there are other places that you can like find joy and community and good work. And I do think there's styles mostly informed by like anarchism and non-hierarchical ways of being that like Earth First can like offer other movements in this just style of doing things. But I think like content wise, like would you like it here? No. Like if you don't want the earth to thrive, don't come. There's so much other good work to do everywhere else. Like please do those things, but it won't be fun for you.
What keeps you coming back to summer gatherings and Earth First as a movement more broadly?
There's nobody else like Earth Firsters, or like not even the people have to identify as Earth Firsters, but the people who come to these gatherings are so special. And I never feel stronger, braver, more competent, more like joyful, more held, more like my true self than when I'm in these spaces. And it is just amazing to be with like hundreds of people who are like, yes, direct action. Like the conversations you can have like after that baseline is hit are amazing. And I cannot have them most other places. When we do actions together, new worlds are possible in that. I am the most ethical, like integrity version of myself when I'm doing actions, like rolling deep with like 100 Earth Firsters, because like we're all on the same page and we're like all gonna have each other's back, and like we kind of like are really just willing to like crack open the world of now into like the world of what's possible.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, check out all of our coverage from the 2024 Earth First Gathering at unicornriot.ninja.